big story that we are tracking at the moment. Torrential floods have devastated the Himalayan border areas of Nepal and Tibet, killing at least 9 people and destroying roads, bridges and power infrastructure. Authorities in both countries are warning that the death toll could rise as rescue teams struggle to reach home at the worst hit areas. Now in Nepal, homes and roads were swept away by powerful floodwaters, while officials in Tibet reported fears of major casualties after a mudslide struck a key land crossing between the two countries. The worst affected areas in Nepal include the Saipru Besi and Timur in mountainous Rasuwa district, which is home to around 50,000 people. Rescue helicopters have so far been unable to land in the affected areas as the river continues to flow far above its normal level. Images from the disaster zone shows homes collapsing into the floodwaters, vehicles being carried away and a metal bridge swept downstream. The destruction has also raised concerns about the safety of people traveling through the border region. The Nepal Tourism Board says at least 291 foreign nationals were reported missing in Rasuwa on Wednesday. Among them are 105 Indian nationals. The missing also included 3 citizens of the United States, 17 from Malaysia, 12 from the United Kingdom, 4 from South Africa, 1 from Australia and 1 from the Netherlands. The nationalities of another 103 missing people have not yet been confirmed. But what triggered the sudden and devastating surge of water? Officials say that the flooding does not appear to have been caused by rainfall in Rasuwa itself. Nepal's Department of Hydrology and Meteorology say that the sudden rise in water levels may instead have been linked to events on the Tibetan side of the border. Possible causes include exceptionally heavy rainfall, an avalanche or sudden release of water from a glacier. Officials have also raised the possibility of a glacial lake outburst flood, a dangerous event in which water held behind a glacier or natural ice dam is suddenly released. The exact cause, however, remains unclear even now. Authorities are investigating whether the disaster was triggered by a glacial lake outburst flood, the formation of collapse of a glacier, or another event in the high Himalayas. Rescue and assessment operations are continuing, but difficult terrain and dangerous river conditions are hampering efforts to reach these communities. Authorities in Nepal and Tibet remain on alert for further flooding and additional casualties as the situation develops. Indian Embassy in Nepal has issued emergency numbers for assistance and information for Indian nationals impacted by Nepal flash floods. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Nepal Prime Minister Balen Shah and conveyed condolences on the loss of lives due to the floods in Nepal. Prime Minister Modi also extended all possible humanitarian and relief assistance. India is preparing to send an emergency relief material to Nepal as soon as possible, according to Indian government sources. Government sources confirm logistical preparations are underway to dispatch necessary supplies swiftly. As flash floods hit Nepal, authorities in UP and Bihar have also stepped up preparations to deal with the situation that would rise due to heavy flow of water downstream. As you can see, Pakka bridges were completely destroyed as the flooded river with its silt and concrete coming in from the top reaches of the mountain moves straight towards the bridge and damage it and even sweeps it away from its foundation. My colleague Sneha Kushi, in fact, joins us, Deputy Output Editor, on the phone line. Sneha, this particular flooding, right now, no clue about how this has happened. There is only speculation that it could be a glacial lake burst, it could be because of the rains, but this has come without warning. And now the other difficult part of it is that the rescue workers are finding it difficult to land at these locations because the situation is still critical.
Absolutely, Varghese. These are very, very worrying visuals that are coming on the screen. Very worrying and very shocking. You can literally see the force of nature here. You can see the force of water. You see cars and several vehicles just being swept away. There's how the houses are being lashed by waters completely. These are in different parts of Nepal, for that matter. This is in the area of floods in Rasuwa. Now, what we also know that there are around 291 foreign nationals and 93 locals, Nepali citizens that are still missing, particularly in Rasuwa region. So that's also a very big concern. What we are also learning is almost over 100 Indian nationals are also missing. So this is a huge concern at this point. There are emergency lines that have been set up by the Nepal Tourism Board as well. Prime Minister Modi has spoken to Nepal Prime Minister Balen Shah and has conveyed his condolences and as well extended all possible humanitarian assistance as it were. Indian Embassy has also issued helpline numbers for people who need to contact to get more information. 105 Indians are reported missing. This is out of a total of 400 people who are reportedly missing in different parts of Nepal. Now, this is after two central Nepal districts, Verghese, bordering Tibet, has killed a confirmed number of 16 people. But these numbers are definitely bound to rise, considering they are looking at a missing number of almost 400 people, including 250 plus foreign nationals. Their damage is extensive. The visuals are telling, but the damage is extensive. You have settlements that are completely washed away. Settlements, and this is not just a single house or two houses. These are settlements that are being washed away by the fury of the river, as it were. And there's also reports that are emerging that there's extensive damage which has also been caused to different hydropower projects. Almost a dozen hydropower projects have been affected after the Bhote Koshi River swelled, and this thing was reported in different parts of Nepal. So two central districts really being impacted at this point. So big concerns around this. This is around the Bhote Koshi River, which is in the Rasuvagadi Timure area. This is early in the morning, and I mean, you can see visuals actually show you how settlements and bridges have completely been washed away. Verghese, at this point, the count is a big concern. The impact, the huge, massive impact of this entire flash flood. That's what we are really calling it at this point. As you said, there's no particular reason of what it is, but there are different relief attempts right now, rescue attempts. There are different trekking agencies that have come together and are trying to contact pilgrims and several others that have been found. There are bodies that are being found, even as people are going about doing the rescue operations. There are bodies that have been scattered across and have been found. There are at least confirmed number of 17, but as we have been talking, it's only bound to increase, Verghese. There was a flood alert which was issued along the Gandak River, also in Bihar, and that's, of course, after what's happened in Nepal, the proximity of what's really with the India-Nepal border. This remains a big concern. There is heavy monitoring that has been initiated. This is because, the flood water is expected to move downstream into the Gandak River, which is at the Indo-Nepal border, as it were. Big concerns, really, Verghese, at this point. There may not be any clarity at this point about what really caused it, but the flooding was not caused by the rainfall, is what we know. That's something that Nepal's Department of Hydrology and Meteorology has confirmed. It was not caused by rainfall in Rasuwa. So that's a very important information that's coming in. That's been ruled out. Now, this could have been triggered by a glacial lake outburst or a landslide, or some are even suggesting an earthquake. But there's no definitive cause behind it at this point. Experts are still studying about what has happened. They're also looking at whether there was any risk potentially from the Tibet side that was not taken into account, whether there was an alert at the Tibet side. So these are the details that we're getting at this point, Verghese. The visuals are, the impact of what has happened is very damaging, and I think it will take a very long time for Nepal to really deal with this. You have Timure as well as Seafru basins that have been affected very badly. There have been multiple bridges that have been washed away. So we'll have to see how this pans out. I think several countries have pledged assistance, relief materials for Nepal at this point. India has already moved its relief materials for Nepal. This is a crisis, Verghese. We'll also have to see whether this had anything to do with the climate change, whether El Nino. All these things are eventually going to come into the fore, but very, very worrying visuals, Verghese, that are emerging at this point.
Sneha, as we in fact speak, one big concern, of course, has been from our side has been the Indian tourists who have been there, and probably this is the only one figure that we've got, that 105 Indian tourists are missing. It's still, on the ground, it is a very difficult situation. These are probably the first information that's coming in. A proper assessment is probably awaited because the terrain situation is very challenging.
Sorry, Verghese, can you repeat that please again?
I'm saying when it comes to our situation, when we in fact see the situation on the ground, for India, 105 tourists are still missing. But the fact remains is that, this could be the first initial information that's coming in. It's very difficult to access that terrain, so a complete picture is probably awaited. Probably we will get it only after 24 hours, because even now the challenge has been to reach these areas that have been affected. So probably it is going to be a very difficult task to estimate the loss on the ground.
That's true, Verghese. In fact, somebody who has reported multiple floods on the ground, I think these are just initial estimates. And as hours pass by, there are people who are going to reach out to emergency lines, and they're going to report about their missing loved ones. There's going to be local monitoring as well, and eventually we'll have to see how many of these missing numbers are going to get rescued. How many of them would not be found, then eventually it will take. It's a protocol that goes in place. It's going to take weeks, if not a month or more, before the missing people who are continuing to be missing will then be declared as dead. But the count definitely, Verghese, is going to increase, because we're looking at the scale of devastation that we're looking at is tremendous.
When we look at the visuals that are coming in, Sneha, we are talking about several of these high projects that are there, especially on the upper reaches, projects like the hydroelectric projects that were completely washed away. This particular river is geographically built where you can go ahead and build dams and have these hydroelectric projects also. But the impact of this was so sudden that none of these people who were at the project site were given a warning, and that is also a huge economic loss that Nepal will have to face, especially when it comes to investing in such high-end projects like hydroelectric projects. As you can see, the visuals that are in fact coming in, we can see how the situation is emerging. As I was in fact trying to say that this is a very difficult situation in which the rescue efforts are being carried out. We are back on the line with Sneha Kushi. Sneha, it was being said that this particular river had several hydroelectric projects. Now, these are very important projects as far as Nepal is concerned. It is also investment heavy. All those projects have been affected. Some of them have been completely washed away, and has resulted in electric shutdowns, in the electricity shutdown to this particular district itself.
To be some technical error at this point, but look at the visuals. I mean, Verghese, just the force, the fury of nature, that's what's literally visible on the screen, and that's going to be an indicator of what the impact of these visuals really are, of what this flooding is really going to be. Whether it call it a cloud burst, whether, because of a landslide, whatsoever, the impact of it is going to be really witnessed out of this.
As we can see the visuals coming in, we did see how an entire bridge was in fact washed away. Several important power structures that were present, especially near the hydroelectric area, have been washed away as well. Right now, the biggest difficulty that is being faced is to reach these areas that have been completely impacted. Some of them would have to, in fact, go through treacherous routes and roads, which have also been laid in line with the riverbed, and therefore some of those roads have been also washed away. The biggest challenge for rescue workers is to reach the place. The Prime Minister of Nepal had in fact asked the police, the armed police as well as the army, to engage in rescue efforts. And as we can see, the water along with the silt coming down from the upper reaches of the mountain through the downstream regions, and you can see the impact of it on the human settlements that are there. There you can see a truck which is moving through the road that is laid parallel to the riverbank, and some of these roads are laid in such a manner that could result in complete damage to those rivers, and it could be washed away itself. The road itself could be washed away, and you can see the huge settlement of silt that is there after the river with this humongous amount of water moves through this area, and it completely fills up the areas next to the settlements. This visual of a huge concrete building being washed away was captured as well. Now, the reason for this excessive amount of water to hit the river is not yet known. There are several speculations, especially with regard to rain, glacial burst, with regard to glacial lake burst. A lot of these speculations are going on, but the Nepalese government has said that the activity happened probably in the Tibetan region as we speak, and this particular river in Nepal has several hydroelectric projects on this. It was considered as an important powerhouse. It powered this Rasuwa district as well. Meanwhile, 105 Indians are missing is what we understand because of these floods in Nepal.